Stevie Nicks transformed a fractured psyche into a $1.8 billion empire. This trajectory serves as a definitive case study in how one woman utilized the mechanics of heartbreak to construct a permanent, multi-generational hegemony. While the surface appears as a mist of chiffon and velvet, the architecture beneath is built on ruthless negotiation and strategic reacquisition of intellectual property. Why did a woman once reduced to cleaning her producer's house for rent money become the most valued asset in the modern music economy? How did a package deal in 1974 lead to a singular billion-dollar fortress by 2026? The mythos of Stevie Nicks did not begin in a recording studio, but in the sterile, high-pressure boardrooms of Greyhound. Born Stephanie Lynn Nicks at Good Samaritan Hospital in Phoenix on May 26, 1948, her early reality was defined by geographical instability. Her father, Jess Nicks, was a corporate climber whose ascent to a corporate vice presidency forced the family into a nomadic existence across the American West, from El Paso to Salt Lake City to San Francisco. This constant displacement created a vacuum, one that Nicks filled with the heavy textures of narratives and fairy tales fostered by her protective mother, Barbara. The zero point of her musical identity, however, lies with her paternal grandfather, Aaron Jess, A.J. Nicks Sr., a country singer with a penchant for the gritty atmosphere of Gin Mills. A.J. became her first mentor. By the age of 4, she was already singing duets with him in local public venues, an apprenticeship that instilled a performative confidence long before she could even pronounce her own name, vocalizing Stephanie as T.D., which eventually mutated into the global moniker Stevie. In the book Gold Dust Woman, the biography of Stevie Nicks by Stephen Davis, the transition from folk enthusiast to rock frontwoman is documented through her 16th birthday present, a Goya guitar. It was on this instrument that she wrote "I've Loved and I've Lost," and "I'm Sad but Not Blue," her inaugural foray into the confessional songwriting that would later monetize her private grief. Her adolescent years in California served as the cultural substrate. Her first band, The Changing Times, was a 4-member folk rock quartet that mirrored the vocal-heavy structures of the Mamas and the Papas. This early focus on harmony would become the bridge to her meeting with Lindsey Buckingham at a Young Life Club gathering in 1966, when they spontaneously harmonized to California Dreamin'. It was the birth of a creative synergy that was both beautiful and fundamentally combustible. By the early 1970s, Nicks and Buckingham were a duo in freefall. Their 1973 eponymous album, Buckingham Nicks, was a commercial ghost, failing to gain any traction despite being the first recording produced on a large-format Neve console at Sound City Studios. Polydor Records dropped them, and Nicks was forced into a series of low-wage survival roles. She became a hostess at Bob's Big Boy, a waitress at Clementine, and eventually a cleaning lady for their producer, Keith Olsen. This period was the forge. It was here, while Buckingham was incapacitated by mononucleosis, that Nicks wrote Landslide, Rhiannon, and Crystal. The moment that shifted the global pop-rock axis occurred on December 31, 1974. Mick Fleetwood, scouting for a new recording location at Sound City, heard a playback of the track Frozen Love. He was hunting for a guitarist to replace Bob Welch, but he found a package deal. When Fleetwood called Buckingham to invite him to join the band, Buckingham issued a non-negotiable ultimatum. He would not join without Stevie Nicks. They were a singular unit, a creative anomaly that the remaining members of Fleetwood Mac, Mick, John, and Christine, initially viewed with skepticism before a single rehearsal confirmed the pop accessibility the duo brought to their blues rock foundation. The mechanism of this pivot was purely transactional. The band was a failing legacy act from the British blues scene, and Nicks was a cleaning lady with a trunk full of hit songs. Their integration into the group in 1975 led to the self-titled Fleetwood Mac album, which hit #1 by late 1976. But the real data pivot lies in the 1977 release of Rumors. Despite, or perhaps because of, the visceral dissolution of the Nicks-Buckingham relationship, the album became a juggernaut, certified 21 times platinum with over 40 million copies sold worldwide. It remains the most important record in the band's history, a perfect record that provided the financial runway for decades of subsequent experimentalism. To understand the endurance of Stevie Nicks is to understand what music historian Simon Morrison identifies in his book, Mirror in the Sky, The Life and Music of Stevie Nicks. Morrison examines Nicks not as a caricature of a superstar, but as a deliberate architect of her own craft, utilizing what he describes as gendered restrictions to create an object of fascination and fear. Her artistry is built on the grain of the voice, a distinct, raspy croon that Morrison argues situates her within a long, uniquely American tradition of women songwriters who must work harder to transcend the mystical boxes the industry attempts to lock them in. This phenomenon is academically explored through the lens of the queer sublime. As explained by scholars like Dr. Smith in their research on the power of narrative, Nicks' stage presence utilizes paradoxical thinking to foster a deep, almost religious connection with her audience. She is the magical gypsy godmother, a term coined by Harry Styles, who occupies the in-between spaces of reality and fantasy. Morrison's theory posits that Nicks' feminine presentation, the chiffon, the leather, the lace, was never about mere aesthetics. It was a shimmer, a method of apprehending knowledge that refuses linearity and instead focuses on the sublime moment when the performer and audience meet. This sublime is not just a feeling, it is a systemic tool. By inhabiting her imaginary world of witches and night birds, Nicks provided a template for female empowerment in a rock landscape that was aggressively patriarchal. The theory of witchy methodologies, explored in contemporary academic dissertations, suggests that Nicks' use of witchcraft imagery was an allegory for asserting her own will without guilt. In a world of well-behaved girls, she was the autonomous, defiant woman beholden to no one. This academic anchor explains why her influence has remained systemic, citing her as the primary inspiration for artists ranging from Adele and Lorde to Harry Styles. The central paradox of Stevie Nicks lies in the tension between her ethereal persona and her cold, industrial financial dominance. While she sings of dreamsmiths and spellcasters, her 2025 financial valuation of $1.8 billion reflects a mastery of modern capitalism that few of her peers have achieved. This is not a mirage. It is the result of a seismic shift in how legacy music catalogs are valued. The discrepancy between her historical net worth of $120 million and the recent $1.8 billion figure is driven by the strategic reacquisition of her master rights and the renegotiation of archival licensing. This valuation is symptomatic of a larger systemic trend, the catalog heist. In 2020, Nicks sold an 80% stake in her publishing catalog to Primary Wave for approximately $100 million. At the time, it seemed like a retirement cash-out. However, the data reveals a more cunning strategy. By aligning with asset management firms specializing in legacy IP, Nicks unlocked locked-in revenue streams. The viral resurgence of Dreams on TikTok in 2020, triggered by a man longboarding with ocean spray juice, was the catalyst that proved the safe bet status of her catalog, driving her annual royalty revenue to an estimated $120 million by 2025. The irony is profound. A woman whose image is synonymous with unlearning and unmaking the structures of the empirical world has become a pillar of that very structure. She is an IP engine, with her name and likeness rights sold as part of the deal to ensure her presence in video games, social media, and luxury brand partnerships, such as her work with Daniel Wellington. The Gypsy is now a corporate architecture, a multi-billion-dollar entity that generates more revenue while she is asleep than most artists earn in a lifetime. The trajectory to billion-dollar status was nearly derailed by the extreme systemic pressures of 1970s and 80s rock culture. By the mid-1980s, Nicks' chemical dependence on cocaine was so severe that it created a literal hole in her nasal cartilage. The financial toll was equally stark. She later estimated spending over $1 million on the substance alone. This was not merely personal failure. It was the biological cost of the rumors machine, a band fueled by what insiders described as a continuum Liz Taylor/Richard Burton type of life. In 1986, following the Rock a Little tour, Nicks entered the Betty Ford Clinic for a 28-day program. This marked the end of the cocaine habit, but the beginning of a far more insidious interregnum. A psychiatrist, in an attempt to maintain her sobriety, prescribed the tranquilizer Klonopin. What followed was an 8-year dependency that Nicks has characterized as more detrimental than the cocaine habit itself, leading to creative exhaustion and significant weight gain. She describes this period as a stolen time, where her artistry was muffled by pharmaceutical intervention. It was not until 1993 that Nicks fully detoxed, ending all pharmaceutical ties. This final detoxification was the turning point within the turning point. It allowed her to regain her creative momentum, leading to the 1997 live reunion album The Dance and her subsequent solo resurgence. The paradox lies in the fact that her most ethereal music was often written during her most grounded, sober moments, while her most haunted vocals were the byproduct of literal, physical damage to her vocal cords and psyche. She survived an era that offed many of her contemporaries, emerging not just as a survivor, but as a sovereign. The final dissolution of the Buckingham-Nicks partnership in 2018 represents the most significant fracture in rock history. After 43 years of what Buckingham called pursuing a higher truth through their personal differences, the marriage hit a brick wall at a Musicaia's benefit concert. The catalyst was reportedly a smirk from Buckingham while Nicks was delivering a thank you speech. Nicks, channeling the pragmatic voices of her parents, issued a final ultimatum: "I'm done." She later revealed that she had given him more than 300 million chances. Buckingham was unceremoniously fired from the band via a phone call from manager Irving Azoff. This led to a high-profile lawsuit in October 2018, with Buckingham alleging breach of fiduciary duty and intentional interference with prospective economic advantage, claiming he lost out on up to $14 million in tour revenue. The lawsuit was quietly settled out of court, but the emotional divorce was absolute. Since that moment, Nicks has spoken to Buckingham for only about 3 minutes at the 2023 funeral of their musical soulmate, Christine McVie. The 2018 firing was not just about a smirk, it was a power move. In the hierarchy of Fleetwood Mac, Nicks represented 70% of the audience. An arena tour without Lindsay was viable, as evidenced by his replacement with Mike Campbell and Neil Finn. A tour without Stevie was a financial impossibility. This reality underscores the systemic nature of the band's dynamics, a democracy in name, but a hegemony in practice. With McVie's death in 2022, Nicks has confirmed that the band is officially over. There will be no farewell tour. The curtain has closed, leaving only the songs to speak for a relationship that was as much a battleground as it was a duet. As of early 2026, Stevie Nicks has successfully transitioned from a legacy icon to a contemporary activist and financial pioneer. Her reacquisition of master rights and her partnership with Primary Wave are part of a broader trend of blockbuster acts like Bruce Springsteen and Bob Dylan cashing out for astronomical sums. However, Nicks' deal is unique because it includes her name and likeness in perpetuity, allowing Primary Wave to market her as a brand that transcends music. The resurgence of classic rock in streaming culture has been the primary valuation driver. In 2025 alone, Nicks' ventures generated over $200 million in direct injections into her net worth. This includes exclusive brand merchandise, luxury watch partnerships, and high-value festival appearances. The data from Pollstar ranks Nicks consistently in the top 10 of global concert tour, with average gross revenue per show exceeding $2.5 million and entry-level ticket prices for her 2026 Austin show starting at $225. This is the architecture of independence. Nicks has moved beyond the democratic structure of Fleetwood Mac to establish a standalone power. She is no longer just a singer, she is a royalty engine. Her royalty portfolio from classic catalogs generates an estimated $120 million annually, a 60% year-over-year increase driven by increased sync licensing in film and television. She has effectively decoupled her income from the need to perform, ensuring that her financial perpetuity is as stable as her cultural one. The current landscape for Stevie Nicks is defined by a new, overtly political creative phase. On February 16, 2026, she appeared on CBS News to discuss her latest work, The Lighthouse. Characterized as a rallying cry for women's rights, the song was written in a single day in response to the 2022 overturning of Roe v. Wade. This material represents Nicks' most direct confrontation with power structures, moving away from the mystical and toward the systemic. Her 2026 tour schedule remains prodigious, with headline slots at the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival and solo performances in Texas and Oklahoma. Her setlists have evolved to include dedicated montages in honor of Christine McVie, whose death in 2022 remains a shattering loss for Nicks. She now wears a necklace containing McVie's ashes, a physical embodiment of a 50-year history that has reached its final chapter. This contemporary status is a bridge between heritage rock and modern cultural movements. The search for the original 1973 Buckingham Nicks master tapes, which took months to locate and digitize, has allowed a new generation to hear isolated tracks for the first time in half a century. As she navigates her late 70s, Nicks is more candid than ever about her personal choices, including her 1979 pregnancy termination, which she credits with allowing the rumors machine to survive. She is not merely a nostalgia act. She is a functional, multi-billionaire activist whose mission was to write songs to make moms and wives feel better. Stevie Nicks is the only woman in history to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame twice, yet her greatest achievement isn't a trophy or a chart position. It is the construction of a self-sustaining mythos that survived the chemical, emotional, and financial fires of the 20th century to emerge as a dominant economic force in the 21st. She is the cleaning lady who bought the house, the package deal who became the whole storefront. We are left to wonder, in the pursuit of artistic perpetuity, what is the final cost of a legend that never ends? Perhaps the paradox lies in the fact that to become a goddess, you must first survive being a human.